Hi, I'm Lorelei Craft, and I'm going to tell you a true story that seems more like a fairy tale. But unlike a regular story, I'm going to tell you the beginning and the end first. I'm saving the middle part for last, because that is the heart of this story. Here's the beginning of the story. Once upon a time, in 1984, there were 12 women who wanted to try to do something about the staggering 20% unemployment rate in the area in which they lived in northern Minnesota. They decided to build a handcrafts village, which would create an outlet for local arts and crafts, provide employment, and have the additional bonus of creating a tourist attraction for the local economy. The end result was a village built under the towering trees of northern Minnesota on a stunning 67-acre piece of wilderness. 8 buildings and a restaurant were built. The women had projected 20,000 visitors, and 100,000 showed up. By the end of the first year, the village sold the handwork of over 200 artists and craftsmen and employed 60 people. It brought in over $500,000 for the local economy that first season. The founding mothers and local craftspeople profited from this income, but the big winners were Becker and Hubbard County. Each houses a major town through which visitors had to pass on the way to the village. The village then swept all the top tourism awards for the state of Minnesota, and its president was named the Minnesota Woman Business Owner of the Year. Sounds wonderful, doesn't it? But the heart of the story is what happened while the village was being built. For this group of women defied all logic and all the experts and all business teachings and did what everyone said couldn't be done. They built and opened this entire village in just 5 weeks and 5 days. Now, to be perfectly honest, if public television hadn't filmed this story as it happened of the birth of the village of the Smoky Hills, I wouldn't even believe what I'm telling you. So I'm going to show you the heart of the story, the miracle part, through films from public television programs and news stories of those times. I'm also going to talk about why business plans can be a hindrance and why the women succeeded when all the experts said it was impossible. Here now is a fairy tale story of what the founding mothers, as we called ourselves, did. Let's start with a Fargo television story on the village.
Our next report is a story of caring, of courage, of vision, optimism, and success. It is the incredible story of the village of the Smoky Hills and its creators, the 12 founding mothers.
We came together in November of 1983 and talked about this, and I started putting together a plan for the bank. We applied for the loan in January of 1984. We got the loan in February. We bought the land in March. We broke ground in April, and we opened in May.
Such an incredible story.
Yes.
Did you envision this? I mean, it is so...
No, I have to admit that. We pictured a little village out in the hill. We said to the bank, we'll get maybe 20,000 people to come. And there was no way we envisioned what would happen. We had over 100,000 people show up the first summer. They're sort of like the bumblebees, you know. They say that when women go into business for themselves, they tend to be more innovative and more creative because they don't have preconceived ideas about the way to do things, and how it has to be. And the bumblebee aerodynamically cannot fly. Its wingspan is not big enough for its body. But the bumblebee doesn't know that, and the bumblebee just keeps flying.
Yeah.
You have just met Lorelei Craft, the vivacious, energetic, former political science teacher and candle maker who is the president of the corporation that envisioned, built, owns, and operates the village of the Smoky Hills near Osage, Minnesota. The 12 founding mothers, all friends, came together to create this village, not as a money-making venture, but out of concern for their community. That year, Becker County was among the poorest in the state, with a staggering unemployment rate of 20%.
Well, those of us who are involved in this have been friends for a long time as social activists. We've been involved with women's rights, the elderly, senior citizens, the handicapped, that type of thing. And so when I came up with the idea for building a village, it was natural to go to those women and say, why don't we try to do this?
From that point, the story reads like a fairy tale.
We started off with one carpenter, two carpenter's helpers, and the founding mothers. And everybody said we were crazy. We were those crazy broads out on the hill, which of course keeps the adrenaline going at 3 o'clock in the morning as you're getting tired. And we literally, we built walls, we hammered, we pounded, we shingled, we built decking, we did everything right alongside with the men. And about a couple of weeks before we opened, we knew that we were not going to be able to get it done ourselves, and we did bring in some extra help, and we opened on schedule. From the day we broke ground to the day we opened was 5 weeks and 5 days.
I give them all the credit in the world for what they're trying to tackle here. You know, it's going to be a tough job. Physically, they're not as strong, of course, you know, but, you know, there's enough of them so that, you know, the numbers makes up the difference. And, of course, they probably can't drive a nail quite as fast, but as soon as we get power in here, which we don't have now, I've got automatic nailers and things.
We had to build a road. We had to clear the sites. We had to put in the footings. We had to coordinate electricians with plumbers, with the people doing the building and getting the lumber in and doing all those kinds of things. Men wouldn't tackle it because they know better. Public television filmed the building of the village that first day. Here's some of the way they told the story on their program called Common Ground.
Featured on this Common Ground special, the force behind the village of the Smoky Hills is a group of women called the Founding Mothers. Through her wholesale candle-making business, Lorelei discovered a pent-up demand by tourists to see crafts being made, and more importantly, to buy them. Lorelei decided to approach some of her friends to try and interest them in investing in a craft village. A core group of 12 women were soon incorporated under the name the Founding Mothers.
When I first heard about Founding Mothers, Flo Hedin called me up, and I thought for sure it was another one of Lorelei's radical organizations. And I was right, it is.
The Founding Mothers were not radical in the sense of being militant, but rather they did what financial experts said was impossible, raised the little over $250,000 needed to undertake this project. $67,000 of this came from the Founding Mothers themselves. The rest from a small business administration-backed bank loan. Lorelei knew they didn't have enough money to hire a complete crew of carpenters, so she and the Founding Mothers devised a plot that would turn the tables on a practice their husbands had monopolized for years.
Well, you know, all these years, men have donated our services to their projects. We've baked their cookies and we've sold their raffle tickets. This time we decided we would ask them to donate their services to us, and they really did it quite cheerfully.
We brought the coffee and sandwich.
Yeah, he's ready for his coffee break already, and he hasn't even started. The public TV reporter then interviewed some of the Founding Mothers while we were building this first building, asking us how we felt about women doing this kind of work.
Most things that were done in America were done by both sexes, and but we appreciate having this kind of PR. I grew up on a farm, and my dad let me carry shingles, but never use a hammer.
I really like the idea of what she's trying to put together for the village. I think of it as the barn raising, where the whole neighborhood comes together to put up somebody's house in a day.
My name is Kathy Stennis, and I became involved in Founding Mothers through Flo Hedin here. She is the one that first introduced me to it. And I've known Lorelei for several years. I've always admired her, and I just thought it would be very exciting to be part of it.
What do you think about the idea of the Founding Mothers?
I think it's exciting. Oftentimes women are placed in the background roles, and it's fun to be involved in something that's out front, and it shows that women can do many different things. You know, they have the full capabilities of male counterparts. So.
How do the men like taking a backseat to what you're doing here?
I think pretty well. It's a different approach for them, but I think they're handling it well. And all the families of the Founding Mothers have been very supportive. But that just shows that all the roles of women are changing, you know, a lot, and that they're going to continue to change until we're, you know, more in the forefront of what women can do.
I'm Joanne Madsen. I'm a CPA from Detroit Lakes, Minnesota. I've known Lorelei Craft for several years. We've been connected both as friends and as business associates. And she's the one that got me all excited about the village of the Smoky Hills. So I became involved because of her.
What does a project like this mean to the Founding Mothers? Is this a big step forward for women?
Oh, I think it's definitely a big step forward for a lot of the women on the project. I don't think that this is something we would attempt alone, but together, I think we'll make it.
This crew of unlikely weekend carpenters was attempting what many building experts thought was impossible. They started construction in early April of 1984 with a goal of opening for business in 1 month.
A project like this to be done in the time interval seems impossible. It has to me anyway, but once you get to know Lorelei and then get to know some of the people that are involved in this, you can see that, hey, this just might work.
A month later, most of the 11 buildings and interconnecting wooden walks were nearing completion. Lorelei could actually see her dream materializing.
A month ago when we started, we only had 2 buildings up here, and we did those in 1 weekend. Let me take you along the boardwalk and show you some of the things that we've done so you can see what a miracle this really is. We've built ramps between all of the buildings so that they're completely handicapped accessible. This is our stained glass and art building. We're hoping that by midnight tonight, all of our buildings will look as complete as this one is. We're standing in the quilt building, and I think of all of the buildings up here at the Smoky Hills, I really love this one the most. This building epitomizes everything that we're trying to do. We're helping a cottage industry get started and at the same time help preserve the old-time crafts that people used to do. This quilt is entirely hand-stitched.
When we were out here before, we were starting the first 2 buildings, and since then all of this has happened. All of this has been built in that time. I'm really amazed that happened. There were some extra crews put on, but just the fact that this much could be done in this short a time is really amazing.
Public television came back a month later to film our grand opening.
On June 30th, 1984, the village of the Smoky Hills held its grand opening. It was a sunny day, a day for roses, balloons, and horse-drawn buggy rides. It was also a day to reflect on this achievement and its impact. This was more than a time of self-congratulations. The community at large turned out to show their gratitude.
Good morning. My name is Faye Ellis. As a founding mother, I would like to welcome you to the village of the Smoky Hills. This is going to be our grand opening ceremony, and we are very happy and delighted for the weather and for the turnout. Archie Henderson would like to share a little bit with you this morning, and he is the Becker County Zoning Chair. Archie?
This area needs the attraction that we have here. We have a abundance of local craftsmen in the area. We have an abundance of local labor, and it's very pleasing to see these crafts being displayed in this building, and I think this is something great.
Thank you, Archie, for that support. This person has the honor of being the youngest founding mother, has the most energy, and so we put her in charge of construction. And she did a marvelous job supervising the workforce that we had out here. Kathy.
Faye took away my best line because I was going to mention that I really have enjoyed working with the founding mothers here. I have grown to admire them and respect them for mainly 2 reasons. First of all, because they're a great group of women, they're industrious, hardworking, and second of all, because they're all older than I am, and I was raised to respect my elders. My family has been very supportive. Rick is working in Walker right now, hardworking. I have the founding children here. When I first approached Rick about getting involved in Founding Mothers, he of course said, oh no one to cook my meals or wash my clothes or clean the house anymore. And he was right. My main reason for being up here now is to thank the carpenters, because they have come forward and just out of the woods, literally, and have done a great job for us. Thanks, Kath. We discovered in working very closely together that there were 4 founding mothers that turned 40 in the months that we were working together. And we discovered also that we were not getting older, we were just getting better. And here's Flo.
It must be an age crisis or something, right? I mean, you just don't do these things overnight, and we have. One of the reporters asked me, what experience or background do you have in restaurant? And I said, well, I've run my family home kitchen like a restaurant for all these years. I certainly feel that's pretty good qualification for running a restaurant. And I'm not too old to learn.
So, thanks, Flo. And the last person certainly is not a person that you are unfamiliar with. We have all grown to know her and to love her very much. Lorelei.
2 months and 2 weeks ago, there was nothing on this hill. And so if I cry a little bit while I give my speech, bear with me, because this is really quite an occasion. We did what everybody said couldn't be done. The work was grueling. The founding mothers worked hard on building the village. We staked out the land, hammered decking, shingled roofs, laid the tile in the restaurant. We donated our husband's time, our children's time, and anyone else's time we could get our hands on. During the same time, all the search work was also being done to find the people who would be stocking the little cabins for us. The restaurant plans had to be drawn up and approved by the Department of Health. Public hearings were held to get a variance to use the land for commercial purposes. Subcontractors had to be found for electrical work, cement pouring, drilling the well, etc. And everything had to be coordinated so that in the 5 weeks and 5 days we had left, from the time we broke ground on April 16th to the day we opened on May 27th, it would all get done. And everything did get done. But it would never have happened without this spirit of cooperation, determination, hard work, and just plain guts of the founding mothers. We decided to incorporate as Founding Mothers Incorporated in recognition of the women who, equally with the men, gave of their lives and their spirits in building this country. And yet the term Founding Fathers excludes them from those contributions. And so we decided that we would make sure that they were honored at least in this way. There's a very special honorary founding mother that I want to acknowledge, my mother, Catherine Walter. I absorbed many things while I was growing up. The things that she taught by example and not with words. She lives far away and couldn't help with the building. But if she could have, she would have been out here with the rest of us all night long. So here's to my mother, who is the best example I know of the spirit of a founding mother. I am proud to say that I am a chip off the old block. Kathy Stennis. This project would not have made it without Kathy. In May, she took over the construction end of things. I have never seen anyone get so much done in so little time and with such good humor. Kathy was then chosen to cut the ribbon at our grand opening ceremonies.
This is a founding child.
The local artists welcome the village not only as an outlet for their crafts, but also as a vehicle to promote awareness about their art by allowing visitors the opportunity to witness the process.
I think it's good to actually see it made. This is just a small part of the whole process, but it gives them a good idea of, that there's craftsmanship involved.
Lorelei would like to see the village of the Smoky Hills expand to help create more jobs and increase revenues, possibly to the tune of over $1 million per season. Skeptics believe that raising the capital to finance such expansion will be next to impossible. Perhaps they are unaware of the determination and drive of these far-sighted women called the Founding Mothers, who have dared to dream the impossible dream.
The first year, the village had woodworking, pottery, candle dipping, stenciling, quilting, stained glass, and a Christmas house. We also had guest artists who came in throughout the season. Because many of the founding mothers have teaching backgrounds, We also wanted to have hands-on activities, so you could dip your own candles, tie-dye a t-shirt and wear it home, stencil your own gifts, grind your own wheat to take with you. We also had live music every day, with area musicians providing a great backdrop. By the second year, we had to expand because so many people came. So we added more shops, a second restaurant, a blacksmith shop. We had wagon rides, horseback riding, dog sled demonstrations. Kids could participate in all kinds of fun as well. By the third year, we also had glass blowing, and we're bringing in even more entertainment. We featured much ethnic music, including many bands from Germany, Norway, Finland, and local groups. People also came to see the very unusual displays and antiques in our shops. Then we added a castle in the enchanted forest, as well as dinner theater. The village was also a wonderful place to hold weddings, from the castle to the lookout tower in the forest. The village became known as a prime entertainment center, with fun things to watch and do throughout the commons all day long. It was written up in many magazines, and we again got the top tourism awards from Minnesota. So why were the founding mothers able to pull off this miracle when everyone said it couldn't be done? 4 years after the village opened, 2 of the founding mothers sat with me on the deck of the restaurant and talked about those remarkable 5 weeks and 5 days. We agreed that one of the reasons we succeeded was because we didn't have the word can't in our vocabulary. Just listen to the absolute assurance in my voice when I spoke with the public television reporter on the day we built our first building.
You're building today, so how long before you plan on opening?
5 weeks from tomorrow. This is our first house going up in the background, and we literally plan on opening 5 weeks from tomorrow. There wasn't a bit of doubt in my voice that we weren't going to be able to do this. And so you ran the food service because we needed somebody to run food service, okay? Kathy was an English teacher. Kathy ran the construction crews because we needed somebody to run the construction crews, and she seemed that, okay, she could do that. And Faye gravitated off towards the buying end of it because even though she was a teacher of the learning disabled, well, I'll do the buying. I ended up as the marketing director and the overall, you know, whatever you do out here, you know, between presidency and janitor. So it was an incredible evolution of what we became from what we were, because we had no training in any of this. We just said, well, we're smart women, we can learn. I remember doing the brochure the first time because I had to do a 4-color brochure on a place that didn't exist.
Yes.
And I had to do and come up with something back in April before we had even broken ground, and it was a total miracle because you look at it and you swear there was something there, and there wasn't a building on this hill yet. I remember staking it out the first day. I came out with my husband, and he carried the little ball of red yarn and the stakes and the hammer, and we walked through the brush, and then I would just close my eyes and I would say, okay, all right, this is about where these things should be. And after we had staked out 3 buildings, he said, honey, these are all crooked. And I said, yes, I know, I want them to be. And that's one of the best features of the village, is it's not straight line, you know, Dodge City, USA. It's all crooked, and people slow down because the houses sort of meander through the woods instead. People say, oh, you know, who was your architect and who laid this out and who did this? The women did it. We did it all. We designed the buildings and the layout, everything. We also talked that day about succeeding because we were so focused that we never got sidetracked by conventional business thinking, which can often stifle innovation.
I had the privilege of speaking at some small business seminars that were conducted by the SBA and the Extension Service, and they carefully lay out the business plan. And as I look at that business plan, I became more and more convinced that if we had had that information, the village would not exist today. And it would have been helpful to have some information
But if it kills off spirit and it kills off the going ahead with an impossible idea, then I question the value of it.
I think that oftentimes the experts do a disservice to people by telling you why you can't do things rather than focusing on why you can. And they say when your advisors can't dream as big as you do, whether it's your banker, your accountant, or your parents, it's time to get new advisors. Another reason we succeeded so well was the fact that we never spent any time looking back and saying, oh, wasn't that a shame that. I remember a reporter came through from a national magazine, and after about 3 hours of talking to me, she said, okay, you've told me all of these things, why the village succeeded and all these wonderful things that you're doing here. What was the worst thing that happened to you? What was the most traumatic thing that happened? And you know, I thought and thought and thought, and I couldn't think of anything that I would consider traumatic. So Faye was coming through and I said, Faye, come over here a minute. So she came over and I said, Faye, what was the most traumatic thing that happened to us when we were building the village? And she couldn't think of anything. Well, about a week after this reporter left, I said, oh, don't you remember? 3 days before our grand opening, the health department came in and made us take a jackhammer to the basement floor of the restaurant because the man who had drilled the well had drilled it too close to the septic system. And we had to jackhammer up the floor down there and move the whole septic line away from the well. Now that's traumatic, okay? But we couldn't even remember it because to us they were problems. They weren't obstacles. We put all of our energy into making it work and no energy into the things that went wrong and had to be redone. On one of the Fargo television shows, I talked about how we also succeeded because the founding mothers brought different personalities to the project. It took all kinds of management skills. I'm the visionary of the group. I like to say my feet never touch the ground. And we have another founding mother, Kathy Stennis. Her feet never leave the ground, and it takes both of us to make this successful. I also believe we succeeded in those 5 weeks and 5 days because women tend to have different management techniques than men do. Women have a different approach to doing things, and we were so excited about it. And the carpenters said afterward they had never ever had anybody stand there and jump up and down and say, oh my God, our first door. This is wonderful, look at this is our first door, you know, and nobody had ever done that for them before. It was expected that you hang doors and you hang windows and that was it, you know, and we would feed them. We would say, okay, everybody break down on the longhouse, and we'd give them, remember, donuts. Sure. And we would give them ice cream and strawberry shortcake. And I think the other reason that they gave so much is we worked right alongside of them.
We were always there.
We were working as hard as they were, and they knew that.
And the interesting designs also came from very interesting carpenters who worked.
Oh, they were sweethearts.
For the village. They were people who were really, they were free spirits and allowed to be free in their approach to things.
I think what made us successful is the fact that people could see that we really cared. We cared about the environment. We cared about our employees. We cared about what happened out here. You know, this wasn't a place that was built by some big corporation that came in and said, let's build a theme park and make a lot of money. This was done by people who had a dream for their community. We reminisced 4 years later about what it was like the day before we opened and the incredible contribution of the volunteer labor from our families and friends. We had all of our families out here and all of our kids, and public TV had come out and was following me down the boardwalk. We had no doors hung yet in some of the buildings. The sawdust was all over. You know what building looks like, you know, with the pieces of insulation and the shingles and, I mean, everything. It was just a disaster. Dick Biederman, who was one of our people who made all of our wood furniture around here, came with his son that night to deliver the first of our tables for the restaurant. And he looked around and he said to his son on the way home, they'll never make it. They're never going to open tomorrow, never. And he came back the next morning at 9 o'clock with his last load of furniture, and he said it was like 1,000 Chinese laborers had gone through this place. It was clean. Every bit of construction evidence was gone. All of the antiques were up and hung and all over the commons. He said he couldn't believe it. And I remember that night and having all the families here and serving hot dogs over a bonfire and saying, you can't go home yet, you can't go home yet. You know, we still have all this work to do. And then the next day, when we opened, and it was one steady stream of people. I mean, we cried. We had tears in our eyes. It was just incredible because everybody came to see.
They wanted
what
to know
had
if
done.
we could do it too. I mean,
Yes.
they were
might have
coming
come.
as doubters to be made believers.
Right.
Yeah.
I also talked that day about how some of the sexism that women face can be turned into an advantage by taking this lemon and making lemonade with it. As I do my public speaking around the country, I say to the women, we have a right to be angry about the discrimination that we suffered only because we're women. You know, I mean, people, for no other reason than saying you're a female, you can't do that. Sometimes I think that it's an advantage and a strength that we're not part of the Good Old Boy Network. Because I know when I was in high school, I wanted to take shop. I don't know if you remember, I came home and I wanted to take woodworking and they said, no, you can't, because I was a girl. And I was really upset, but that was a real advantage to me long term because I didn't know, you know, I hadn't built my little nightstand and shop, therefore I didn't know you couldn't build a whole village in 5 weeks and 5 days, and we did it. Whereas if I had built my nightstand, I would have said, there's no way we can do this. So I didn't know. And they say that when women go into business, they tend to be a little more innovative and creative because we don't know the right way to do things, and so we create ways to build villages in 5 weeks and 5 days. So now you know the heart of this fairy tale story of the founding mothers of Minnesota and their village of the Smoky Hills, and the miraculous 5 weeks and 5 days it took to create that enchanting place. As years went by, life took the founding mothers onto separate paths. And the village of the Smoky Hills has since evolved into another purpose and another beginning. It is now a wonderful conference and retreat center for individuals and groups alike. The shops have been remodeled into cabins, and the restaurants into conference rooms, a theater, game room, and coffee shop. The new name of this unique place is the Smoky Hills Wilderness Retreat. What is so remarkable is that the new owners have kept the peaceful and quiet feeling that the founding mothers created in that beautiful setting under the towering trees of the Minnesota Smoky Hills. Todd and Kelly Payne have truly created the beginning of another dream.